One of the biggest problems of the current obsession with diversity is that its sole focus is a superficial diversity that is concerned with innate characteristics such as race, gender and sexuality, and that policy efforts, whether that be by governments or corporations to engineer diversity outcomes, necessarily must involve discrimination. So if you want more gender diversity in your mathematics department, then you advertise women's only positions, despite there being no evidence that women are discriminated against in applying for such positions. Or to get around the charge of discrimination, you do it covertly. For example, Harvard's now well-publicised policy of discriminating against Asian students because they had the misfortune of scoring too high on standardised tests. Or take the recent example at Lund University's Faculty of Engineering in Sweden. In order to meet their diversity targets in hiring, if a male candidate is found to be the most competent in the interview process, well then, just cancel the position and then re-advertise at a later date. Now, I suspect there are some people within the diversity movement that, whilst misguided, are sincere in their efforts. However, the push for greater diversity at its core is primarily a political one, designed to accrue more power to the alleged disenfranchised. And you can see this in the postmodernist language in which it is presented: privilege versus the oppressed, fighting against implicit bias, institutionalized racism and sexism. Everything is characterized as a power struggle. Now, I've made the point before that diversity and inclusion should be renamed conformity and exclusion, because behind the shallow diversity of identity is a demand for ideological conformity. And if you don't get on board, well, you'll be excluded. And that's why I believe diversity of opinion to be more important. And I thought an interesting way to demonstrate this would be to use voting patterns as a proxy. So if we look at the US electoral map after the election of 2016, this is what it looked like. Trump won 306 electoral votes and Clinton 232. Now, if only women had voted, the map would look like this, with a swing to Clinton of 229 votes and Trump left with a mere 71. If only men voted, it doesn't look too much different than the actual result, an extra 42 votes going to Trump. So what can we say about the political diversity of men and women in the US, at least with regards to this particular election? Well, that American voting age men are more politically diverse than women. Now, of course, there are unique circumstances at play here, as there are in every election. And just looking at men and women can be overly broad. If we look at only white men, we see a more skewed result towards Trump, 493 to Clinton 45. However, white women were more evenly split and quite close to the actual result. So white women showed more political diversity than white men. Now, turning to race, white people, obviously skewed somewhat by the preferences of white men, leaned more towards Trump, but Clinton still manages 169 votes. When we look at people of colour, however, it's a clean sweep to Clinton. And furthermore, at the bottom of the graphic from where these charts come from, the author makes the following note. The reason I didn't break down the people of colour vote into various groups by gender, ethnicity or education level is that no matter how I broke it down, it was always 100% blue. And that's really the point of this video. Does a superficial focus on diversity of skin colour actually result in more diverse views? After all, this is the claim, that bringing people together of different racial and ethnic backgrounds and different gonads will result in a more diverse range of ideas and therefore better outcomes. And again, I understand the limitations of focusing on voting patterns, but I did this to demonstrate that simply throwing a bunch of people in a room with a variety of skin colours, ethnicities, gonads and sexual preferences doesn't actually result in more diversity of opinion. Speaking for myself, if there were a political party out there that perfectly reflected my views and advocated for the policies that I want to see implemented, and all the representatives of this fictional party were Indigenous disabled lesbians, I would vote for them in a heartbeat, because the words and ideas that are being conveyed are far more important than the identity of the speaker conveying them. As usual, let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I'll see you next time.